gods. Because notice, in archaeology, every single ancient monument that we can find either was a temple, and it was then built, or it was built for the gods. And then they tap each other on the back, they go home, and they say, mystery solved. No. The mystery is far from being solved, because who were these gods? That is the question. And according to the ancient alien theory, they were not gods at all. They were misinterpreted flesh and blood aliens who visited us from deep space. This right here speaks for itself. And I've been told many times that this picture is misleading. Is it really? I don't think so, number one. But because people have told me that, I will show you what the picture looks like as the statue. And it's like this. So what we just looked at, if you look at the eye right here, you know that this one, here's the eye, it's the same. So I basically took a picture like this. But that still does not mean that this here is not very technical in nature, because it is. Because I don't see any feathers here. I don't see any flowers. What I see is tubes and helmets and weird technical looking stuff, because we have statues that have feathers and headdresses and flowers and things coming out of their heads and crazy stuff like this. Absolutely. But that's not the stuff I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is this. So in Tikal, for example, we have an incredible carving, and it looks like this. And I've painted it in, I've colored it a little bit, where you can tell the guy is clearly wearing some type of mittens. His arms are on an angle, and then check out this bizarre thing going down into this type of canister. It's this tube. This is only half of the carving. This is the whole one. It gets even crazier. Look at this. What's going on down here with his boots? Obviously, there's some tubes that come out. They're attached to the outside. And here you can clearly see, and like I said, I colored it in. This tube goes into some type of a tank. So what if what we're looking at here is a breathing apparatus? I've actually got some footage here of that thing. It's about this tall. Unfortunately, the head is missing, so because it's been cut off. But what we're looking at here is clearly something that is rooted in technology. And again, this was not carved by an extraterrestrial. This was carved by a human artisan, a human mason who did this. But what did they try to depict here? Is it possible that they saw something like this? And again, always ask yourself, how would you react to this if you had never seen it in your life and you weren't familiar with anything of modern technology or modern equipment with planes or modern equipment with anything? These gloves up here, very ornate, but no flowers, no ropes, no feathers or anything like that. So is it possible that the artist saw something like this, or was told about something like this and then had the unfortunate job having to recreate it? Everybody is familiar with the Hindu god Ganesh. And today he is known as this giant elephant, his trunk perennially attached to a bowl of food. That's why he's so portly and plump. But have you ever asked yourself, where do the people in India and the surrounding regions where did they get their ideas for their gods? Where did they come from? What was the original, how did it all start? Well, I can show you. I can illustrate it for you. In the case of Ganesh, here's another beautiful tattoo in this case. This here is one of the earliest renderings that we have today of Ganesh. Now, does that look anything like an elephant? No. But you can all of a sudden get the idea how over time this turned or was morphed into an elephant. What you have here is this being with a bizarre face or a bizarre helmet with a breathing tube and clearly some type of a tank. And then it's got 4 arms, and the back arm right here has an axe, thus making it look like as if it's an elephant ear, an ear of an elephant. Now the next one right here is a statue that was found a little bit later, so you can already. Hello? Yes. You can all. This is all interference by aliens, by the way. You can clearly see the change from the previous bronze statue to this one, where the head has already been transformed into more of an elephant-looking creature, but you still have the canister, but the trunk has already been turned into an elephant's trunk, but it is not what we saw here. Now imagine, again, people 5,000 years ago or even 10,000 years ago in India, they're of course familiar with elephants. And then they see something like this, and of course during the time when this creature was visiting with our ancestors, of course the people living at the time knew that that was not an elephant. But over time, those people then died out, or, well, not died out, but they died, and a new generation came along, and suddenly this morphed into Ganesh, because that is what they saw. Here, you look at an elephant, if you don't know what this is, you're familiar with an elephant, but you've never seen something like that. Well, you're going to liken it to an elephant because of the trunk, which this isn't a trunk, but it's a breathing tube. So this turned into that. And so it is with a whole bunch of other deities, in quotation marks, of course, and stories where, and this is what I'm trying, but I want you to remember from now on when you look at stuff, always, always, always look at the most original of sources you can find. The further you go back in time, the more accurate the information is, especially when it comes to stuff like this. This here, the Rocket Man, as I like to call him. He's situated, or he is located at the Museum of Natural History in New York City. And when I was on tour this summer in June, I actually went there to visit him and to say hello. And they removed the little plaque that was underneath him. But I remember, or I actually wrote down, back in the early 2000s when I saw him last, I wrote down what the plaque said. And it said, God of Textiles, location Veracruz, 700 AD, and then on the 5th line was, nothing else is further known. But I appreciate the last line the most, that they don't know what they're talking about, or what this means. Because why on earth would you name this God of Textiles? What does that even mean? It's a hollow phrase. It does not exist. It's a modern invention to call this the God of Textiles. Because it can't. Why would you do something like this? You only do it when you don't know what to describe it with. When in reality, what we're looking at here is incredibly clear. It's a better picture right here. You've got this guy, he's obviously wearing 6 wings, he's got some type of a pressure suit. There is a pack on his chest. There's a pack on his chest. And then look at the skull cap that he wears on his head, like some type of modern day astronaut, once again. See, because physics on Earth also applies to physics on other solar systems. And I know there's a lot of people in my field some of them I do not consider my colleagues, who talk about ideas that, physics on Earth does not apply to physics on other planets, which is nonsense, because physics is physics, and 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, it's mathematics. That's what we're talking about. And what's fascinating with me, or to me, with this whole Rocket Man is how incredibly similar he looks to the Olmec heads that are very much popular these days because of movies like Prometheus, just came out this summer, where the Olmec heads, or the whole Olmec culture, and you know them, I mean, they're these giant heads that have been carved out of igneous rock. They're bigger than life-size statues, actually, where in modern day archaeology, the Olmecs apparently are a huge mystery. And the entire planet nods their head, and they're like, oh yeah, the Olmecs, huge mystery. When in reality, it's not a mystery at all. But nobody dares to talk about it, because the bottom line is that what the archaeologists are saying is that the Olmecs, they appeared out of nowhere and then they just disappeared mysteriously, and we have no idea where they came from or where they went. Well, do I really have to point it out? And of course it's a rhetorical question, because I'm going to point it out right now. These faces, they look African. But oh no, no, no. There is no way that Africans visited the New World before Columbus came along. And I'm sick and tired of such notions, because that to me is the insult in human ingenuity. To suggest that we don't know where the Olmecs came from and we don't know where the Olmecs went. They just poof, they just disappeared. Really? No. They went back to Africa. Can't you see? And I wouldn't be who I am. I am suggesting that this contact, or this visitation from Africa to Mexico, or today's Mexico, didn't take place by boat, but it took place with aviation, or by aviation. Because all throughout Africa, we can find ancient stories of flight that we are all incredibly unfamiliar with. And there are university professors who are now embracing the idea that the Olmecs are or were Africans. But only, people like me and Erich from Daniken and David Childress, we're the ones who should suggest that this contact might have taken place by flight and not necessarily by boat, even though that certainly existed. There's no question about that. Throughout today's Colombia, we have pre-Columbian artifacts, gold artifacts that have been found. Thousands and thousands of them, all of which have been put inside the tombs of the deceased. They were made out of gold, and they were incredibly wonderful in their craftsmanship, and they were also incredibly detailed in what they did. I mean, here, for example, we've got a peacock and a chameleon and all sorts of different... we do something about this mic, because something... Okay. Well, okay. Among these items, there were 17 items that were objects that looked like this. And these are not similar or the same from what we see here. They're different. These are the 17 that have been found, and compared to this, these look like modern day planes. Now, I'm just going to point this out and not even say anything. But the amazing thing about these things is the fact that these